Hello, everybody. Woo! What a beautiful warm welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, EW, for sponsoring this epic event. I mean, we've got Gilmore Girls, everybody. Yes. On the count of three, I want to hear, shout it. No need to be quiet. Shout it. Who are you most excited to see here? Sounds like everyone to me. On a more serious note, I want to say tonight is such an honor for me to be standing on this stage, sharing this stage with these gorgeous women. Yes, there's some very handsome men back there too. I think you guys know them. But I actually moved to LA from Florida with 2 days. I had to get across country in 2 days for the Gilmore Girls audition. So I know you guys probably don't like Lindsay so much. Yeah, I know, okay. Even without Twitter, I knew you didn't like her. But it was an epic moment in my life. You know, Amy and Dan and actually Kenny Ortega, who was the director of the episode, he's amazing, yes. Yes. They all gave me a chance. And every day I was on set, they probably don't know this because they were so cordial and warm and kind to me, but I was staring at each and every one of them for different reasons, knowing that I had the most wonderful platform to learn off of these brilliant actors. So for that, I will always be grateful. And speaking of these amazing women, Caitlin and Emily, the founders of ATX, here they are. These women are powerful, strong, brilliant, kind TV lovers, and without them, we couldn't be here. So I'm turning the mic over to them. Thank you guys for all that you've created. You see the love of TV. And without you, we wouldn't have this hub. So thank you. And thank you, EW, if I didn't say that already. I love you guys. Bye.
My name is Emily, and this is Caitlin, and we are the executive directors of ATX TV Festival. Thank you. I knew I was going to cry tonight for a long time. I'm going to try and get through this really quickly. We started this festival 4 years ago from a pure love of television and storytelling, these amazing shows that were being on air and weren't given the acclaim that film was being given, and there were these great stories that were being told that we wanted to celebrate, and it wasn't just new things, it was old things and all these new platforms, and we always knew that a big part of that was going to be reunions. And this is the biggest one we've ever done. This is the biggest festival we've ever had. We are so grateful all of you are here. We couldn't do this without our staff and our volunteers and our sponsors and each and every one of you, and we just thank all of you from the bottom of our hearts.
I am not going to speak nearly as eloquently as Emily just did. I'm kind of amazed. Gilmore Girls has been on our list 4 years ago. It's a show that we both grew up with. It's a show that my mom sent me VHS tapes to college to watch because I didn't have cable. It is amazing what it has become, how big it is. And we just want to thank Entertainment Weekly for helping us make it closing night, because without them, it would have been general programming, it would have been competition, it would have been really hard to do. And we're just really thankful for all of you that are here, and particularly the Gilmore Girls. So with that, we would like to introduce your moderator, Jessica Shaw from Entertainment Weekly Radio. The creator of this show, Amy Sherman Palladino. And one of 3 actual Gilmore Girls, Lauren Graham. And another one, Alexis Bledel. And another one, Kelly Bishop.
How amazing is this?
Well, welcome everyone. This is incredible. Please, Luke, please, please, please. Those were the first 5 words of Gilmore Girls when it premiered on October 5th in 2000. And in the first 2 minutes and 41 seconds, Lorelai and Rory managed to reference Macy Gray, Jack Kerouac, RuPaul, and West Side Story. I remember watching that first episode, and by the time Carole King sang, "Where you lead, I will follow," I was hooked, and I imagine you all were as well. How could you not be? A mother-daughter who ping-ponged some of the sharpest, most exhilarating dialogue ever on TV. A mother's mother whose singular stare seemed to hold about 20 pages of dialogue. And a town full of sometimes cranky but always compelling characters. And now I, someone who scored 92% on How Well Do You Know Stars Hollow online quiz, and beyond, okay, easy, 100%, and beyond excited to talk to these extraordinary women. So, welcome. Amy, let's start with you, the overlord, the brain trust.
I like Overlord.
Okay, we're off to a good start.
I'm enjoying that.
Tell me where you were, both literally and sort of psychically in your life when you came up with the idea for this show.
All right, I had just decided I'm never going to work in television again because I had just come off of a nightmare job, and I was like, I can't. I just don't. I can't. And my husband said, shush. And then he said, just write something. Just write something you want to write. Don't worry about if it's going to be anything fancy. Just write something. And I had a meeting at the WB. And
R.I.P.
The WB, yes. The Frog. Anyone remember the Frog? No, you're all You're 8. You don't remember the Frog. Anyhow, and I went in and I pitched a bunch of stuff to them, and the last pitch I had, because they were bored and they were like, oh, that's great, is she ever going to stop talking? And like the last thing I said was, and I got this idea about a mother-daughter, and they're more like friends than mother-daughter, and they said, okay, we'll buy that. And I walked out and I turned to my manager and said, I don't know what that is. It's a mother, it's a daughter, do they roller skate? He's like, well, figure it out, because they just bought it. And then we went on vacation to Connecticut. It's a long story. Mark Twain's house. We were decorating. He's got a red room. It's not important. And we were staying at this beautiful inn, and it was leafing season for all of you who are 8. It was leafing season.
Fall? You mean fall?
Wow.
Writer.
It was fall, and there were pumpkins and hay rides and people asking where you can go buy your pumpkin, and I thought, this is not real. I'm from the valley, everything's brown, nobody talks to each other, you get in a car and you drive fast and you don't look at your neighbor, and I didn't understand the concept of people like talking to each other and caring and wanting a response. It was strange, and that's when I decided, well, I'll put him here, it seems nice, there's trees. And over the weekend, I said, oh, we're staying at an inn. Maybe she works at an inn. I was desperate. And then
it's better than roller skating.
Literally, roller skating would have been good too. And then I thought, okay, well, now she's got to have parents, and they shouldn't live too near, so Hartford's kind of close, okay? And literally, we're like, what's a big business in Hartford? Insurance, great, Richard will be in insurance. And by the time Monday came, it had all fallen into place, and then we flew back, and that was it.
I understand. I think I read somewhere that you wrote the first few scenes on the inn stationery.
Yeah, I still have it. Well, I wrote the kitchen scene with you had to lick a spoon. That's all. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why. But for some reason, I had an idea for, and I wrote the dialogue, and we actually shot it.
And where do you keep that original script?
In a box somewhere where you put boxes. I don't know. I have to get it out and see if it brings me joy.
And for Lauren, Alexis,
Japanese.
and Kelly, I would love to hear when you came across this script and tell me about your auditions for these roles. Lauren,
Are you asking
sure.
me? Oh.
All three.
Well,
This is how Alexis got the job. I had heard about this script, but I was on another show called MYOB for NBC, a half-hour show. Yeah, exactly. And so I wasn't available, and also I was in New York. It was one of the. It's like when they tell you, you should act unavailable, and that will make a guy like you, but you can never do it because you don't want to. But this was a case where I was actually unavailable, and so it kept coming around, and I feel like that helped so much. And finally. They had seen other people, and they said, "Okay, we know that you're on this other show, but will you come in and audition?" And it was so I did everything in one day. I met Amy. We had a little work session. I believe you said to me, because up till then I had gotten every job I ever got by kind of doing the lines, kind of like adding my own little twist. Yeah. And I came in. And maybe tried to do that, and Amy was like, well, "You're not going to do that, right? You're going to do it like I wrote it." And I was like, "All right," but it was very fast. But I just want to talk about the first time I read it, because I hadn't read it when I kept saying I couldn't come in because I couldn't, and finally I read it, and something really clicked. And I remember Christopher Reeve in an actor's studio saying. The way you know a part is really for you is if you can't stand the idea of anyone else doing it, and that's how I felt about this. I was like, ooh, this is mine. I can't stand the idea of anybody else doing this. Thank you. But I had that kind of a strong reaction, and so I came in. Amy told me to do the lines as written. I tested for the studio and the network, and you were already cast. I didn't meet Alexis until we started work, and then I'm almost done talking. Then, although we have like 3 hours, so I'm gonna really take my time. But then, and I think it was my birthday also. But there was one other very talented actress who's worked a lot since then. But she was from New York. And it was just the two of us testing together, and she was from New York and didn't have a car, and asked if I could drive her back to her hotel because we kind of knew each other, and I did. And on the way back, my old brick Motorola cell phone that we had back in those days kept ringing, and I felt really nervous, and I didn't want to answer the phone, and so I took her to her hotel, and I feel like this story's taken a weird turn, and then. But it was that fast. It was just like, and again, using the dating analogy, like sometimes it just works out. And it was, and then I got the job and went to Canada and met Alexis, and here we are.
Oh God, it would have been so great if you had answered the phone and gotten the job in front of her and been like, "I got it? Oh my God, when do I leave? I got it." And she's just sitting there. "I have no car. I'm in a strange city. I don't have a job."
But can I have a ride somewhere?
That would have been so awesome.
Alexis, how about you?
I was at NYU, and I had just become interested in acting. I was in their film school, and let's see. I was modeling to help pay for school, and I had a cold when I got this audition because I had been to my last ever modeling job, which was in the middle of winter and involved large Home Depot buckets full of water being thrown at my body so it would splash off. And then they would take pictures of the water frozen in air, and there were buckets of water thrown at my head, and
What was the product? What was it for?
It was just a fashion editorial.
Just fashion.
Yeah. I think some of the pictures are online. They're pretty funny because I look like a poor, miserable little I'm just like, is this really happening? Maybe I'll tweet one or something. I think they're so funny. So that was my last ever job, and I was like, this modeling thing just really isn't working out. Plus, I had put on my freshman 15, so it really wasn't working out. And so I had become interested in acting because through the film school, I was allowed to go to the Stella Adler Conservatory to film the acting students do their work so they could watch it back and learn from their scenes. And so I just started finding myself having all these opinions about what the actors were doing. I was like, oh, it'd be cool if they did it like this or like that. And at the same time, I was going on a handful of auditions that my modeling agency sent me on. So this was like my 5th or 6th audition.
Ever.
Ever. So
I've been at it for like 25 years already.
yeah. So yeah, no weirdness, nothing like, it's cool. I really, just really didn't know what I was doing at all. But I got the script and I had the wonderful experience that actors have when they read something and instantly know who that person is and what voice they have and what they're thinking. And similar to what Lauren said, you know, you have that instant connection. I knew who she was. So I went in with a cold and I did it, and then they had me come back like 4 or 5 times, and I didn't really know what was going on, but then I got the job.
Kelly?
Okay, I just did it the regular New York actor way. Yeah. What does that mean? Anyway, I don't like to audition. I don't think I audition very well.
You're wrong.
Maybe I'm wrong, but now I swear every actor, I'm New York, in LA they're in their cars, in New York they're on the bus, and you do the best audition in the world like 20 minutes after the audition is over, on your way home, and you go, I could have done, you know. So because I loved this like they did, I mean, I'm just looking at this and I go, I own this woman, I know who she is, I love these words. And so I had ample time, which sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get a script like on a Tuesday, and they want to know, could you come in, and they're going to put you on tape on Thursday? And you go, it's 2 days. I mean, when does this thing start? Oh, in 3 months. It's going to start in 3 months. And you go, well, couldn't you have given it to me a little sooner so I could like look at it and think about it? This one I actually had time. And so I worked those scenes, I think there were 2 scenes, and I worked them to the point where I actually knew them completely. You don't do that, you carry the pages because you don't want them to think that you're not going to be even better if you get the job. And fortunately, Amy and Gavin, I guess, were actually in New York. You know, usually you just do tape, and it's so nice. There's a real advantage if the people are in the room with you. They're going to put you on tape anyway so that they have it, but when you just send a tape to California, that's all they've got. So I felt like it was a really good audition. I've always felt like I jinx myself if I said that's a really good script. So if I really like something, I go, thank you, and I walk out like... but I couldn't resist it, and I did say, it's a very good script. And then I left. And then I didn't hear anything, and I kept going, did they call? And I think that at some point they called and they said, oh, yes, we liked her very much. And then I didn't hear, and I kept calling my agents and saying, well, what's happening? And they're saying, well, they're testing this weekend, and so next week they should know they're testing the 2 leads. And the next week I don't hear anything. I said, what happened? They said, well, they weren't really happening, so they're testing some more people. And I'm going, what? And time kept going on, and finally I just said, I guess, you know, it's over. I guess it's not going to happen. And I guess they called out there, and it was like, oh yeah, she has the job. So I had the job. You know?
And Amy, do you remember these moments of seeing and after writing these, I mean, so specific, it's impossible as a fan to even imagine other people playing these roles. Did you have moments where you felt like, yep, that's my Lorelai, or that's my Emily?
Well, you know, the weird thing about this show, as opposed to like a lot of the process where they want you to bring in sort of a cavalcade of people, and then you do the whole thing of like, okay, I'm going to bring in the person that I want, and then I'm going to bring in somebody like with a horn in their head that they're not going to like, and then I'm going to bring in somebody who, you know, has a prison record, and so that they're automatically going to look at the person that you want and go, oh, well, okay, that person, you know, which can totally backfire, and then you end up with the horn in the head person. But this one, it was so specific. I'm sort of queen of writing uncastable women because I don't know why, like the hard parts. And when Alexis walked in, it was sort of like, first of all, she was sick, and she looked at me like, okay, I'm sick, really? I'm just sick, okay? And I'm like, she hates me. I love her. I want the one who hates me. And she was so like different and a breath of fresh air, and like it's like that's what Rory had to be. Rory had to be something you'd never seen before. And so we all knew, like, she'd never done it before. Who knows? I mean, it's a big role. Can she handle it? And it was sort of like, well, we're either going to crash and burn, or we're going to be very smart people, you know. And luckily, we were brilliant. And then Lauren, they kept handing me Lauren's picture, and I wouldn't look at it because she was on this other show. And I'm like, I don't want to fall in love with someone that I can't have. I've done that in my life a lot, and I'm not going to do it here where there's money on the line. And then literally we did. We went through some really good actors, and they all came in, and it was like, yeah, it would get on film, but it wouldn't be that thing. And finally, the casting director was like, you just got to sue Lauren. And I think there was a whole conversation about vacation. When is she back from vacation? And the clock was ticking. Like, we were leaving on Friday. Like, she was booked, and everybody was booked, and we just didn't have a Lorelai. And then I don't know, came in like a Wednesday or something like that. And she finally walked in, and it was sort of like, she sat down, we talked, we read, we worked. She walked out, and we're like, and we're done. Like, there was no even like conversation afterwards. It's like, and there's Lorelai. And it was just lucky that the two of them had the blue eyes and the dark hair. I mean, just that was I don't know, that was a pixie dust. I don't know how the hell that happened, but you know, you can do a contact and a dye job, and who knows. But that worked out beautifully. She walked in. It was the same thing. Kelly walked in, and there were other very good New York actors who had come in and they had read, and the other people that I was with were like, oh, we should bring her back. We should bring her back. And I said, you can bring them back. They're not going to get the part. I mean, you can have them train in all you like. We can give them a soda or something. But if they need it for their self-esteem, we're good for that. But none of these broads are getting cast. And people started to get a little pissed at me. I'm like, look, I'm going to know Emily when she walked in. Kelly walks in. She sits down. She reads. She left. I'm like, and Emily. And we were done with Emily. We always wanted Ed Herman from the very beginning. That was sort of like the dream. Fuck you for dying. Fucking hate that you're dead. We love you so much.
Well, tell me what it would...
Anyhow, he showed up, the president came in, because he played the president a lot. It was the same president, but he played him like 5 times in like 6 different movies. I don't know why, like kind of after you play him once, don't you say, I've already played that guy? I know you want me, okay, I'll do it in Annie once and sing, but then I play him twice, once he sang, once he didn't. Whatever. And so he walked in, I'm like, you're not playing the president. And he was just like, he was it. Like, he walked in and he says, do you want me to read? And I'm like, you don't have to read, you can just stand there and let me look at you. Mr. President. And then he left, and then we had our family. It was, you know, usually studios and networks give you a lot more shit for this. We were actually really lucky because Warner Brothers they got it. They got it the minute they got the script, and I didn't even develop it there. Peter Roth was like, I read the script, I loved it, let's go. They understood, and they understood when I said, I can't bring you 14 people. I got this, I got her. That's the family. They were like, go. Just don't spend too much money. That's all they said.
Tell me about the first day on set. I mean, Lauren, I think that's so interesting that you and Alexis met once you were already there. What was that your first scene like when you had to go there? You had to be mother-daughter.
A walk and talk to the school. Was it really? And then we reshot it in California.
Oh yeah.
In the mic.
Well, we had to confer. Is that true?
Because of Dean, remember?
Oh, yeah. There was another Dean. There was a Canadian Dean.
I'm sorry. There were 2 Canadian
wow.
Deans.
Wow.
And then we realized you gotta go American.
You're gonna get letters. If it was a walk and talk, boy, what a, what do you call it? Not a premonition, but a sign of the future. I was an English major. Because really what we did on this show, which I think then to me, I started seeing it everywhere. I know Aaron Sorkin was doing some walk and talks on West Wing, but just 2 chicks walking and talking about like paint colors and like, books we read and stuff. But we did this walk and talk to the school and take it from there.
Well, because it was my first scene, I think we did the scene many takes.
Yeah, this is coming back to
because I didn't know how to clear
and talk.
the camera. So we have to walk next to each other, but we both have to be on camera. So I would just walk right behind Lauren because I didn't know. And so she would kind of have to grab me and kind of make sure I was on camera.
So you can watch me do a lot of manhandling of Alexis in the early episodes.
Yep.
And we talked about this earlier, but I think part of the wow, they have instant chemistry is I was literally mauling her all the time.
We
I
were
was
just
always
what do we do?
I was like, no, over here, look, we made it.
Yeah, and then acting 101 is where you stand. You have to stand on your mark without looking down at it. And I was never on my mark the first week of shooting. So she was always kind of scooting me over during the scene, trying to help me. So that's what I remember of both of it. And then I learned that you're mic'd. When you're mic'd all the time. So whatever you're talking about.
Like Robert Durst.
So everyone can hear you. I was talking about my cat or something, and the producer came up and was like, "So your cat, huh?" It's never mind.
Kelly, how much did you look in the mirror and just practice Emily Gilmore's looks in preparation for those dinners?
I don't look in the mirror. I really don't. I remember even Dan Palladino at some point said to me well into the run, he told the director that was directing the show to have Kelly do that look that she does. And I'm going, I don't know what that look is. I do lots of looks. I actually kind of prefer doing that. I mean, I love dialogue. Don't ever take dialogue away from me, Amy. But
I don't have that power anymore.
You will. We're going to make it happen. As collectively, we're going to make this happen. Right? Yes. See? Anyway, no, I didn't practice looks. That amuses me. I mean, I'm always amused when somebody just goes.
I was going to say, if you had to do it now, could you do it?
Yeah, I don't even know what it is. There are probably about 30 of those looks. I don't know what they are, but yeah, I mean, you can say so much without saying anything.
I can't. I have to say a lot. I have to talk all the time. I have to use a lot of words just to say hello. Hi, how you doing? I'm fine. It's cold outside. Why is it so cold outside? Why is it so hot here? Why is it so hot here? I've been hot for 4 days. All I do is walk around, and that's hello.
Speaking of which, let's talk about some of those scripts. I think legendary, these long, walking and talking, these monologues and these, I mean, were these scripts 20 pages longer than other hour-long shows?
At least. They were at least 20 pages longer. A regular 1 hour show is about 60 pages, and ours were regularly 85. And it evolved. I mean, it didn't, I feel the pilot was its own kind of thing, but they just got longer, and we almost never cut anything. So you could never say, well, you're not going to use this scene, because we used them all. We just had to speed it up, and then because it was kind of just me and then us, and then by the end, every single person in the town was like on whatever that thing is that makes you talk fast, like, so.
Speed?
Yeah, so they just got longer at the end.
Well, when we did the pilot, we did what it's called a pilot presentation, which is supposed to be like you do pieces of a pilot, which I didn't understand that whole concept, because like, how can you watch something and know if it's not a whole story? Like, what are you picking up? Like, I really like the scene in the shower, but what? So I crafted a pilot presentation, a shorter version that was a full story. And then it was about, I don't know, I can't remember what it was. It was like 64 pages. And they kept saying, oh, you gotta cut it, that's too long, that's too long, it's too long. And I said, I can't prove this yet, but I feel like it's not going to be too long. And we shot the pilot presentation. They're like, great, we love it. It was a full thing, it was a full story. They're like, we can show it as a pilot, except we were 15 minutes short. 15 minutes short was legally too short to put on the air. So we had to like literally go and insert scenes into the pilot that were not planned to be in the pilot because they didn't listen to me. Listen to me when I know very few things in life. This I knew. So there were a lot of talks when we went into series about like, okay, well clearly you can't shoot any more pages than we already shot. It's impossible. So there was a lot of talks about like, what are creative bumpers that we can do? And like little pictures, can we have like art drawings and I'm like, for what? Like Frasier was on then, and Frasier would do like little things before each scene. I'm like, but Frasier's already doing that. We're gonna just be like, what, Frasier? And it's like, hey, Frasier, send us your art drawings. And it was just weird, and they kept trying, and so every week I just added a few more pages and every week they were like, okay, what about, are there animals or music things that we could put in that could, and finally everybody just gave up and realized the page count just had to go up, and it did, and I'm sorry.
And what was that like for you all, and probably Lauren, especially you, to memorize that and you know to speak at that like rapid fire pace?
It's a little bit the way I am anyway, which I think is part of the weird mind meld that we just had, and that's the luck of working with the right person I'm just gonna keep talking about dating. It's so weird, but it's just like you just fell in love. It's just how it was, and so that wasn't difficult. It was, just the pure page count per day. I have a really good memory, which then became a problem because Amy was like, well, you have a really good memory. I'll just give these pages to you in the makeup trailer. And so it was hard, but there really is a music to the language that kind of, it's challenging, but it's not, it doesn't not make sense. You know, if you follow it, it's like, well, you couldn't sing that note, that wouldn't go in the song, you sing it like this. So it was, what was challenging were the walk and talks and trying to get everything perfect, because one of us has a chance we're gonna flub a line, or the cameraman's gonna trip, or, so there became this kind of marathon, athletic, holding your breath of like, please don't, we're almost near the end, don't fall, and like, and still keeping that kind of light and bubbly and with the feeling of like, this is just coming off the top of our head. Those were like the challenges so that are particular to this show, that are unlike anything I've ever done, because it's, it's really like theater. It's both technical and emotional, and just more language than most TV or film has. But to me, that was like heaven.
And Amy, was there a moment where a scene that you all shot where you thought, nailed it, this is the show I wanted to have?
No. Yeah, of course. I mean, the whole pilot. I mean, I knew from the pilot we had the show. I knew from that dinner table scene in the pilot, we had the show. That was it. Like, that was it. Like, there's no questions about it. If you like the dinner table scene, you're going to like Gilmore Girls, and they'll put it on. If they didn't like the dinner table scene, then don't put us on, because the core of it, the interplay, the way that the sniping between Lorelai and Emily, the way the past came up, the way Rory was sort of caught in the middle, like that was the crux of our show. We just got faster. you know, and you know, the first year I will say was particularly brutal on these two because in a new show you don't have the world yet, so nobody has a established love interest, and we didn't know how well Chilton was going to work out, and we didn't know, and we were building the town. We didn't have Kirk, and Miss Patty's was there from the pilot, so we had her, but we didn't have all those crazy things, and we hadn't done our festivals yet and stuff, so it was literally the two of them in every fucking scene of the entire first season. And I remember, it was like right before the Thanksgiving break, the two of them came up to me at one point, and both their eyes were like really wide, like, and it was sort of this like, we're so tired. Is there anything you can do? Because we're just so tired. And it was like, I'm like please hang on, please. There's gonna be scenes without you, I promise. And I'm gonna get you out of scenes together. But until that thing, you had to see the two of them together because that was what was gonna make the audience fall in love. They were gonna either fall in love with those two women walking through town talking about, you know, shopping, or they were going to tune into something else.
It's funny because one of my favorite openers to the show was in the first season that has no or one or two words of dialogue, but it's with Lorelai and Rory, and they, you know, the alarm goes off, and then they get up and they put the, I mean, you all probably know it, the waffles and the coffee and the hair clip.
And that we shot because we were short. We were short that episode. We needed time. We were. Yep, that's why. That's why it was there.
Is there a line that you all get quoted back to you the most?
Oi with the poodles already. Or, I'm gonna get this wrong, huzzah for the Goldbergs, is that the other one? Is that what it's called? I don't remember whose line, oi with the poodles already. It was my line, obviously. And I remember why I said it and where I was. I don't.
Can we get the origins of Oi with the Poodles already?
Well, look, it was the Jewish Goyim show on television. Like, it's this extremely white bread Goyim family, and all they did was talk and argue about, like Jews. They were like a bunch of Jews. So eventually I'm like, she's just going to start talking like a Jew. So there was an Oi in there. And I just remember when she said it, and it was like, wow, this is, there's something so wrong and so right about this moment that, you know.
Why did I say it? Why? Oh, hi. Why did I say it? And why do you like it so much?
We were at dinner.
It was
Why do you remember
you were at the
it?
Gilmore house. I just remember you were at the Gilmore house and you were sitting on that couch.
You all don't remember. Do I need to school you in this? It's how you get people to stop talking about other things when they're like yapping on and on. It's how you shut people up. You say, oi with the poodles already, right?
That's so funny.
Oh, so now you think it's funny. Oh, I get it. All right.
I love the delayed reaction. How about you, Alexis? Is there a line or a moment that people want to talk to you about the most?
That one. That's the favorite, I think. Is there any other one? What's Copper Boom? Did I say it? We said so many things. In college. First day of college, I left for college, and I said Copper Boom, and why did I say it? What? But why those words? Why? Copper tones?
And
Oh, okay, so she's telling me when I go out the door, don't forget to wear sunscreen. So, copper tone? No. Anyway.
How about you, Kelly?
No one ever quotes a line to me. I don't know that. Do they? I don't
Online,
know.
they probably do.
Huh?
Online, they do.
Oh, online they do. I'm of another generation. I don't do that. I do email, I text, and I make phone calls. And that's it. That's it. Every once in a while, I'll watch something on YouTube. Somebody sends it to me, and I have to watch it. No, I didn't know that. I didn't. I do remember. All I remember is early on, and when Emily was just so harsh. Well, I guess she always was, but she was just tough. And how many men would come up to me and go, "Oh boy, you remind me of my wife," and I. You know, I literally said every time, not meaning to, I went, "Oh, I'm sorry." Can you imagine being married to Emily? I don't know. What are the lines? What?
Buy me a boa.
What are they? I don't get any of them. I can't hear them.
I like when you said, honestly, Lorelai, it's not your looks that keep them away.
I said that. See what I mean?
I love
just
when
like
she said
my
stuff
wife.
like that and then just walked out and Lauren just had to like take it. That's great.
Something about when I had Juicy on my butt.
I do remember that. Yes, I do remember that. I remember.
Yeah, you're gonna have
I
tasty
remember
on your brassiere. I remember that.
because I was totally confused by.
But you said tasty instead of juicy, I think.
No, I don't know what, but I just saw her walk away and whatever the line was. But I'm going, why do you have? I thought it was juicy.
It was
Why do you
juicy.
have
She had
on
juicy
it?
on her ass.
On your ass. Did I say ass?
No,
Or-
you didn't say
I
ass.
probably rear end or something like that. On your derriere or something. I don't know.
Well, it's so hard to think about the Gilmore family without acknowledging Ed Herman and we're going to show something, but Amy, I wanted to see if you would just say a few words about him before.
Well, it's really crappy that he's gone, and we miss him so much. And I wanted to try and put a little something together, and it was really hard because at the end, like our first pass was like 2 hours, and I'm like, do we have to do the panel? Can we just show moments of Ed? How's that going to go over? But I think I speak for all of us when we were so surprised, and I don't think any of us knew he was sick because that was Ed. You know, Ed was the patriarch. He was strong. I mean, Ed was the first one to say he was going to be at this panel. That's how like fucked up it is that he's gone, and I just miss him, and I am so grateful I got to work with him, and I got to hear him say my words, and I got to see him yell at me at dailies because I was making him do too many takes, so he would complain on the dailies because he knows I would sit in the editing room while he says, "We're not puppets! We're not puppets!" And he certainly was not a puppet. He was just a drinking, loving, knew everything in the world. He was our Mr. President.
All right, well, let's watch this. First of all, thank you, Amy, for putting that together. That was extraordinary. Even just watching it from the wings, there's the moment of handing the newspaper. There could be this, such a special thing about this show. There'll be this tiny moment that takes about a second and a half of screen time, and it speaks volumes. And it was, I love that you included that, and you know, obviously an extraordinary actor and man, and I can tell how moved you all are having seen that. So, to totally shift gears, let's bring out, right, the rest of Stars Hollow. Let's start with Dan Palladino, producer and writer extraordinaire. Scott Patterson, Mr. Luke James. Milo Ventimiglia. Keiko Agena, Lane. Yanic Truesdale, Michelle. Liza Weil, Paris Geller. Matt Czuchry, Logan Huntsberger. Liz Torres, Miss Patty. Jared Padalecki, Dean. The American Dean. Danny Strong, Doyle. Jackson Douglas, Jackson. Todd Lowe, Zach. And John Cabrera, Brian.
And a chair for Ed.
So I can't tell, first of all, welcome everyone. This is extraordinary to see everyone here. Everywhere I have turned here in Austin at the ATX Festival, people have still, the show's been off for, 8 years at this point, still debating Dean versus Logan versus Jess. I mean, what do you guys make of that?
Look, I've always been very vocal. I'm Team Dean. I mean...
I was gonna say honestly, I was Team Jess. I love Matt as well. I was always a Team Jess guy. I loved Milo. I thought he was cool and sexy and handsome. And,
Thanks, man. But it's one of those tough things too, because I mean, it really has nothing to do with us. I mean, you know, and Rory and choices and all that. But it's like we all know each other, and it's hard sometimes. You know, like Logan was a dick. He kind of was a dick. But it's like, but Maddie's the coolest guy on the planet, you know. So when we're all around, it's like, no, I don't know. I'm rooting for everyone.
I saw something that Amy said recently about the right boyfriend came at the right time, and that's kind of what I feel with Dean and Jess and Logan is that they each brought something out in Roy that she needed at that time. So I'm gonna steal that, but I was also kind of Team Jess.
I will say this. I will say this. If Milo wasn't here today, I'd have totally been Team Logan. So.
I feel like it's really unfair when they ask me to pick one because they were all such amazing actors to work with. It's unfair.
So pick one. Come on.
I think they're mad at me now.
No. I think kind of what Maddie was saying. I think she had, you know, different stages. And then like there was a new man, a new great culmination of maybe the three of us that knocked her socks off. I don't know.
It's true.
What would that be, like Des Ogen or something like that? Desogen? What would that be?
You know, I think I have the final word on this. None of you are good enough for Rory. Thank you very much. Not true, not true.
Well, Scott, let's talk about Luke for a second. How did you find that place of being grumpy, but also just very heartfelt and emotional? And I mean, where did you find that? Because he could have just been like a big grump in a flannel shirt.
Absolutely. You know, the Gilmore audition was the second audition of 3 that I had that day. And I was late for the third one. It was to play opposite Carmen Electra as a fembot. And I was late.
Did Amy write that too?
And I would have watched that show forever.
I had parking issues out front. We were on the west side, remember the place. And I wasn't a happy camper at all. I was late for Carmen Electra. I was gonna get a ticket. It's like, let's go. I'm not getting this job anyway. The script is too good. I'm a nobody. And that's where I found it. I found it in the waiting room, actually.
And Amy, when you saw Scott, was it like,
Boom,
that's my
done.
Luke?
We're done. Check it off. Stamp it, ship it, we're done. It was a real, it was just, I'm telling you, there's reasons that shows work and nobody can tell you why. It's literally the stars align, the right person walks in the door. And I had that with this show because you can take the greatest script and the best director and the hottest talent in the world and put them together and you're like, why does this suck? You know, and it was my turn that day to be really, really lucky.
I'm curious how it's been for all of you since Gilmore started airing on Netflix. And, you know, when all of these life-changing for some, you know, when all of these new fans came to the show who, you know, were babies back when it first aired. Sorry, rage, sorry.
Well, I mean, definitely, like, out of the woodwork, a new generation of fans started coming up to us in the streets. I mean, with the internet, everyone knows what we look like, unfortunately. And people are coming up to me and Amy, and they were the next generation. They were in the embryo when the show premiered. So Netflix definitely brought that out. And for you tech geeks, it's the first time you can see the show in widescreen format on Netflix. So that made my geek brain happy. But definitely, like, it was like sort of an explosion of new. But my nephew kept telling me we're trending. I still don't quite understand what that means, but we were trending on Netflix, and it was definitely an explosion.
We went to the new Bobby Flay restaurant one night, and I got toasted. Wow. We were hungry. I don't know, it was new. And I feel very defensive now. I don't even remember what I had, but I left my credit card there, and I had to go back the next day and pick it up. And when I went to get it, there was this like weird line of very young girls like skulking and pretending like they're staring at the walls and like I don't even think they were supposed to be cleaning something, and the girl's like, oh, we looked at your credit card, and I'm like, oh, did you charge something? Like, did you all go on like some big shopping spree? And she's like, oh no, I just have to tell you, like, you Gilmore Girls? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, it's her! It's Gilmore Girls! And like, there were like 4 20-year-olds, and all I could say was like, you're too young. Like, how do you? But they did. They did. I didn't get a free meal or anything out of it. Okay.
Damn that Bobby Flay.
Damn you, Bobby Flay.
Liza, Paris, one of my favorite characters. Can you believe that you auditioned for Rory?
Yes. Yes, I did. I went in and read for Rory and met Amy and Gavin, and then I got a call, and they were like, they really liked you, but they don't think you're quite right. But if it goes, then maybe they'll find something else for you to do. And that was really lovely, and I'd never heard anything like that before, so I thought that was really nice, and I thought that was probably the end of it. And then the show went, and they wrote Paris, and you know, the younger version of myself was really freaked out that that's what they wrote. I just couldn't fathom that they would think that I could do that based on the other thing. But you know, now I think it's very flattering, and I'm really glad. And it was supposed to just be 3 episodes, and then it just kept going, and it was very nice.
And there was talk about all the casting here, but we also had the opportunity, once the show was going, to write specific characters for specific actors that we knew. Liza was one of them because Amy had seen her early. Danny, actually, for Doyle, was one of them. We knew Danny from before. We thought he should be Doyle. Milo, Amy found him, and we just created the character for him.
Yeah, literally, I saw Milo do it was a pilot that didn't go, and I just said, I don't know what the character is. I just want him before somebody else gets him. That's all and it's only child, and we're not hanging up the phone until that happens. And again, like at that time, we were at Warner Brothers, and they were really sort of like, all right, Sure. And we got a lot of freedom in the casting of it, which I think that it's so much, and today they really try and clamp down on the casting, and there's tapes and there's discussions, but it's got to be a gut thing. You've got to like see somebody, feel that you can write for them, and that's somebody you want to keep writing stories for, and that's what happened.
I feel like I remember that too when I came in. I don't really remember if there was Jess yet. Like there was Jess, but it was just kind of like
Well, Matt was the same thing. Matt was like, I knew that I wanted a college boyfriend. And we had talked a lot about like what kind of guy, like this needed to be the first time that Rory didn't just have, like get that attention of that guy right away. Like that, you know, it had to be the first time that there was a guy who was like, I got girls, you're cute, but I got 4 over there. And deal with
kind of a dick. Kind of a dick.
Kind of a young college man is how I would like to look at it. And so we met Matt, and I don't even think you read, I think you may have read Jess' sides when you came in, or some other sides.
I think I actually auditioned twice for 2 different roles over the course of a couple of years. And then it was either 2 or 3 times for different roles, and then Logan.
Yeah, and we wrote a special scene, like a Logan scene, to bring him in and say, this is the guy we want to be Rory's boyfriend. But it had nothing to do with anything. We just kind of wrote a scene because we can't bring him in reading like Jess lines would be just strange and weird. So I wrote something for you for nothing. I never do that. I'm totally mercenary. I'm all about the Benjamins. That's all I can say.
It was a really good scene. I remember that.
Danny, of course, you have tremendous success right now going on with Empire. Doyle would be so proud. What do you think would happen if Cookie wandered into Stars Hollow?
Oh man, I don't. If Cookie wandered into Stars Hollow, yeah, she would just mess shit up for everybody. She would storm into rooms she's not supposed to, and yeah, it would be pretty crazy.
I'm wondering where you all think your characters would have ended up, might have ended up, you know, down the line.
I just want to say, I don't dislike Bobby Flay.
I felt judgment. I felt like,
no, it just
like
it
there's so
seemed
many
like
restaurants in New York.
I
What
know,
are you
no,
doing?
but I think of it as like a chain, and I don't think of you as like a chain person.
Your
So I
opinion
just
means a lot to me.
But
Boy,
I
the
watch Bobby
Toodles.
Flay, and like I like him, and there's
now,
nothing wrong with Bobby
Lauren said,
or
why
anything.
can't
I think
feel like
Rory
a
would be a
lesser version of
journalist
myself.
still. I think Rory would be. She'd be working hard. She'd be still on her highly ambitious path, career path, post-academia, and or macadamia, whatever. Yeah, that's all I know.
I actually think if Richard were still with us, we would be pretty much in the same place we were. I think we were very comfortable with that life with the country clubs and the right people and all that, and probably still fighting the battles. But now Emily's a widow, so that's a whole other world. So I don't know where she is.
Take that too. Yeah, I mean, there's two scenarios. Luke has either just stayed in town and is, nose to the grindstone. The other scenario is he's closed it down and he's moved to a lake. I don't know why. The number 40 miles outside of town on a lake just popped into my head, and I thought, that's where he ended up. And he reopened Luke's Diner, and it's a bait and tackle shop. He sells camping gear as well. He fly fishes in the nice weather. And maybe
Does he have a girlfriend?
No. I'm getting there. Kind of roundabout way. As I was about to say before, I was so incredibly rudely interrupted.
What was that?
Lorelai is coming out for a fishing lesson, fly fishing, and camping.
Are you writing this down, Amy?
Overnight camping.
Yeah, I got it all.
And that's just what popped into my head. It's complete fish out of water, no pun intended. And that's where I saw Luke somehow.
I think Jess is just out being Jess, creating cool, and then walking away from it when too many people show up.
Hi. In my imagination, Lane is trying to figure out what kind of mom she wants to be. I think she's sort of like in between Mrs. Kim. She wants to be Lorelai, but I think in her heart she's really a little Mrs. Kim. I hope she's still playing music with Hep Alien. That's what I think she is.
Well, it's a tough one for Michelle because I never really understood how we ended up in that town. But patronizing people for sure, somewhere. Maybe in an inn that he now owns, or went back to Paris because couldn't deal with Americans anymore. I don't know.
I like to think Paris and Doyle are still together.
Right? Ride or die all the way, baby.
I think they're really well matched. And I think that I hope that they're just supporting each other and just taking over the fucking world, man.
What's your gangster name from Empire? What's your gangster name?
D Dizzle.
D Dizzle.
Or Lil
D Dizzle
Gangster.
in the future. Oh.
I love that Danny, between The Butler and this, has become the voice of Black America. Because it's just like the weirdest. Like I finally they found somebody to speak for them. Danny Strong.
Word.
Logan would not be working. That's about as much as I know. He would not be working.
Oh, wait.
You can use this one.
Am I sitting on it?
No, it's right. I think I was sitting.
Thank you. Somebody sent me a book, Amy, and it was Margaret Leighton. I don't know, but it was the story of Miss Patty before she came to Stars Hollow, and I thought, oh, and it was online or something. So I don't know where. I think that maybe a show came into town from television, and Miss Patty had arranged it, and she thought, and all her students and everybody at Stars Hollow is going to star. By the way, I always thought she'd end up with you, Scott, because. No, I always thought that women fall in love with cold and withholding men. And yeah, I thought I was. You're too young and too tall. So Scott, I thought, but then. Who knows? Anyway, I don't know. I thought that Miss Patty would end up running for mayor of Scotts Hollow and winning, and oh, thank you. And I thought she wouldn't know what she was doing, and that she would call Taylor at 3:00 in the morning and ask her, "What's the next checker?" And that she couldn't run the town, and that's. And then the television show would come in, and they would put her in front of the camera, and she'd freeze. Wow, that's a lot of thought. It's a lot. So that's a whole lot of thought. I'll remember that.
Yeah, write this all down. I think that Dean Forrester would probably have worked long and hard at the market, and he'd have taken over Dosey's market. It'd be Dean's market. You still have the apron.
I think definitely married to Paris still, obviously. Come on, there's no way. And probably a reporter working at a website thinking...
Head of the NAACP?
Yeah, NAACP maybe, right? Yeah, I think that's about it, you know? And probably thinking everyone he was working for was an idiot, because, you know, obviously. And that's it.
This one, that's a tough one because I don't want to give a non-answer, but one of the greatest things was getting the script and finding out what I was going to do that week or in that episode. I think I was kind of the town fool, and I swear to God that Dan and Amy would sit and says, "How can we torture Jackson?" I mean, the different things that, the vegetables and the turkey and the shoe. And the
deep fried turkey.
Yeah, and the pot being dragged across. I think it was, let's see if we could make him run really fast and have to spit out a whole bunch of dialogue. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, to give you an actual answer, I would say that the vasectomy never took. There's 42 children out there, and I'm actually farming children now. So I guess that's the best answer I can come up with.
Hello. Okay, so Zach got to have a nice homecoming and come back to his hometown where he went to college with his hot wife and his best friend and rock the shit out of the place where he used to make lattes for people. So, mic drop.
Yeah, something similar happened to Brian, I think. And I also kind of always imagine that maybe Brian started he had a tech startup, and you know maybe like he was making a music app or something. But I do like this idea that Brian is like he's developed a really close bond with the twins. And they're kind of like almost like his best friends now.
Okay, now you're getting creepy. Can we cut him off? This is.
Amy, when you started writing the show, did you have in your mind in those early days of writing, this is where I want to end up?
Here? On stage here? In Texas?
Yes.
Yes. I thought, how do I get to Texas? How do I do it? What's taking me to Texas? I always had a feel for where we were going. But you know, shows have a life of their own, and they surprise you. And I just sort of let it take me where it was telling me to go. I don't let a lot of people tell me what to do, but the show told me a lot. So I just got to work with, a murderer's row of people.
Yeah, was there any storyline that you really did not see, or you kind of fought a little bit, and then you said, it has to happen?
No.
Well, you know, a big decision we had to make was when Lorelai and Luke were going to be together. I mean, you could hold it off dramatically. Yeah. We got to a point, it was about midway through season 4 that we realized it's time. And we were getting sort of osmosis-like feedback from the audience, like, it's time. It's time. So, and then when we hit that and started hitting that storyline, it kind of opened up a brand new thread of stories that went into season 5. So sometimes the characters kind of, you know, Rory was going through school, so there was like Chilton, 4 years of Yale. So her progression was kind of there. And then we kind of followed the actors as the characters were kind of leading us. And then we sometimes made the choice of, now it's time to get them together. Now it's time to break them up. Now it's time to bring
the big one was when Rory was going to have sex, because
that was painful for me.
At the time, Dan's still not over it.
That was painful for me.
We still tell Dan that Rory hasn't had sex yet. Because at the time, everybody who was under 18 on television was just fucking. and all the characters were little whores. And I'm all for a bunch of little whores running around, but not my girl. And it was interesting because we weren't trying to make like a statement or anything like that. We were really trying to play the truth of who she was, and that it's a decision she's not going to make lightly, or I didn't want her to like get drunk at a party and it's like, woo, what happened? Ooh, I didn't want that, and the thing is, we knew he's one, but it got to a point where like the studio and the network were like, listen, seriously, she's got to have sex, right? She's gonna like is she like a nun? Like what's going on? She's got to take her vows, got to get her like a wimple, and we're like, no, we'll know. And when we did our storyline, I wanted it to be Dean, and I wanted them to not be together at that time, because I felt like there was something about, I always wanted her to have that great first boyfriend. Her first boyfriend was that ideal great boyfriend, so that you struggle with that as your life goes on, and you have other boyfriends, and you're like, the first one was so nice. And you start to think, maybe I shouldn't have left that guy. And something about returning to that and trying to recapture that, I felt, especially as she's floundering in her personal life a little bit, just felt like a really good way to send Rory, who's so thoughtful and sort of achieves everything she sort of sets out to do, to sort of like, this is not quite working out the way she planned it. So that was the biggest thing, only because a lot of people were like, what's up with her not sleeping with boys?
And what about with Luke and Lorelai? What was, and for you, Scott and Lauren, I mean, did you ever, as actors, feel like, okay, what's going on? Are we going to get together? Are we not going to get together?
I just love the tension between them so much, and there's always the worry that once that to change that dynamic changes the dynamic. But I think it was handled really well, and then it didn't, for me, end in a satisfying way, partially because we weren't sure it was the end. Amy was not with us the last season. It felt, it didn't, I can't answer it because it didn't really end. You know what I mean? It didn't kind of resolve satisfactorily. I don't think.
How would you have wanted it?
I don't think you think so either. Well, if I would stop talking about Bobby Flay, the answer I would have given is, I think they're together, 100%. I
Not just fly fishing, guy.
Yeah, so all true.
do. But I'm not fishing.
All true.
Yeah.
No, that's better. That's better. Let's go with that.
The bait and tackle angle of the.
I don't think I'll be a creative consultant on the movie. Anyway, simple story. Season 4, I called Amy, 3 o'clock in the morning. I went over, I stood in the lobby of her house, and I said, I want Laurel.
My house is a lobby, by the way. I didn't know if you knew that. It's got a giant lobby and a concierge. That's how I wanted to live.
In LA.
I still got in. Get it done.
Boom, and then it happens.
Boom.
But it couldn't happen until we knew what was going to happen after. And that's the thing, because I think TV sometimes rushes into things without thinking about what are you losing. We were very stingy with events on Gilmore for a specific reason, because there's so much to mine in characters, and when you jump to that next moment, you're gonna lose 3 or 4 moments. You gotta know, like, okay, if we take them here, where am I going from there? Because I could lose this, I could lose this, I could lose this. And it was really important when these two finally got together, we knew there would still be conflict, they would still be funny, it wasn't gonna be all rosy, it wasn't gonna be like, now we're in love, because there's nothing worse than those people get together and the whole next season they're like, we're in love, are you in love? I'm in love, we're in love together, aren't we lovely? We're just in love. And it was like, great, I want you both dead. So I wanted to make sure that Luke and Lorelai, who were people who basically had devised lives for themselves that worked perfectly, but didn't really leave room to include a lot of other people in it, who suddenly then decide, okay, we're going to be together, we're still going to have those same issues of how do we, because I live and you live and we do, and you're up late and I like to be up early. So it was a very calculated move to make sure that we didn't just, shoot ourselves in the foot. And then we're like, oh, we're sad.
Amy, you've spoken before about, having wished that they called you to write the series finale of the show. You weren't on. I mean, Lauren, you mentioned.
I have all sorts of poor me things. That's me. I mean,
That's cool.
There was no way they could have. I wasn't working there. It would have been insane to say, Amy, come work on something that you're not contractually working on, and we're going to ignore everybody. It doesn't work that way. But in my mind, it's I'm me. So it was hard to not be able to say cut, that final time. And so I just did it all night when it was on, and I just yelled at Dan all night, cut! And he's like, please, you've got to get over this. Just cut, just pretend. So I mock directing.
I thought it was kind of hot.
And then did you ever go and watch season 7?
I didn't binge on it. I've seen it because I have ABC Family on a lot. I don't really know what that says about me, except my TV's on too much. And they still run Gilmore on a crazy loop, and so every now and then there'd be something on that I hadn't seen, and I would be like, oh, I don't remember Alexis's hair being like that, or what was that walk and talk, and why wasn't it longer? But it was just I've sort of caught up just through having my TV on too much.
A lot of people have asked you, I feel like in interviews I have asked you about 7 or 8 times what your final 4 words were going to be. So I'm not going to ask you that. I'm just going to ask, just give me one. Just give me one word.
Here's the thing.
Limburger's one of them, I'll tell you that.
For a while I thought, I'll just hold on to it in case, and then I thought, oh my God, I've held on to something, it's the thing, it's gonna let everybody down. And now I'm just being an asshole, which is kind of fun. I'm holding it on to it still, because in my mind, I don't know, who knows, maybe, but on my deathbed it'll be like Rosebud. I'll be laying there, it'll be, Amy, what's the last 4 words? It'll be Mike Osceola, over my face. I'm not gonna let you die till you tell me those last 4 words. So
He's doing cardio with stuff on you and pumping.
Don't go yet. See,
I need 2 more liters of blood here.
I've been kept alive 2 extra
not a
years because he
doctor.
won't let me go until I say the last 4 words.
Who here knows what the last 4, Dan, do you know? Dan,
yes,
do you
I've known
want
for
to
15
share?
years, basically. Am I going to tell you? I told you Limburger, that's one of them. It's a no, it's a thing. It's a secret.
And Lauren, Alexis, you guys, you don't want to put the pressure on?
We don't know.
Alexis had me in a headlock earlier. I still didn't tell.
It didn't work out, yeah. I'm not that strong.
I don't want to know unless either I am saying them or I'm listening to someone say them who's in the show the way it was intended. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I would feel sad to know what I wasn't a part of. You know what I mean? The end.
I know what you mean.
Absolutely. Scott, you gave an interview recently where you sort of dropped maybe a little movie going on, and I feel like the world blew up a little.
So listen,
yes, Scott.
There's probably a hitman from Warner Brothers up there somewhere. So I'm going to be answering this question like that. It's nothing I haven't said, and it's the most asked question I get from fans or any time I'm doing any type of interview, and it's my stock answer, and it springs more from a hopefulness, it's like a love letter back to the fans because you guys made this show, right? And now it's sort of growing exponentially with Netflix and all this. So I think it's kind of time, don't you? And not to put any pressure on anybody or the studio or whatever, you know, it was a little podcast. It was just this little podcast. I mean, you know, I'm with these the Gilmore guys in West Hollywood in their studio. And they, you know, we were in there for a couple hours having a good old time and drinking tea and talking Gilmore and all kinds of things. And they said,
Tea is what brought it out. Tea.
With-
Sitting around drinking
my
some Earl Grey. That's
finger
what
up.
happened.
And, you know, the question came as it inevitably does. And I said, well, you know, I said what I said. And next thing I know, I'm getting calls from all over the place. And, you know, it's gone viral. It's viral.
I enjoy the viral.
And it was just like, I was the most surprised person on the planet. But, you know, it was just a little podcast.
It's okay.
So Warner
It's
Brothers,
okay.
Hitman, if you're out there, it was just a little podcast, okay? So.
You know, here's honestly, if anything ever happened and there's nothing in the works at the moment, it would look, here's the good thing. Nobody here hates each other. That's very important. That's a very important step. It would have to be the right everything, like the right format, the right timing, the right way, the right budget. You know, it would have to be, because it would have to. It would have to be honored in a certain way, and I think that if it ever came around, I think we would all jump in and do it. It's just.
Would you all?
Unfortunately, it's not happening right now.
Really, it's up to Carole King. That's the bottom
It's all
line.
up to Carole King, and she won't call me back because
No.
she's got that Broadway thing going, and I can't get her on the phone.
Well, if all the stars aligned and you know $10 billion were backed up and everything, what is the format that, like, is it a movie? Is it like a Netflix series?
I don't know. I honestly don't know because it's not real right now. So, but it would, if it ever happened, I promise you we'll do it correctly. That's all I could say.
Maybe a hip hop version.
Danny.
Word.
All right, I know all of you have, a lot of you have questions, so I wanted to open it up. Now there's mics over on the sides.
Oh my God, this reminds me of like the WGA meeting when they were telling me we were ending the strike. We had to do the same thing. We had to line up there and ask, sit down, young lady. Sit down, young lady, sit down, sit down. There you go. All right, not on his lap, not on his lap, there you go.
So thank you. First of all, I think everyone says thank you. Gilmore Girls had very low stakes, and not a lot of TV, especially now, has low stakes. And it made it feel so special a lot of the time. Can you kind of speak to why you would want to tell a story in that way, where maybe big things weren't happening every week, but we still cared so much about the characters and wanted to see what happened next?
Because life is big, and sometimes the average everyday things are more impactful than, oh my God, there's a dinosaur coming down the road. We pitched that. We couldn't afford the dinosaur. But you know, my first job was Roseanne, and the motto on Roseanne was, it was an unbelievable training ground because the motto was make the small big, make the big small. And I've kind of stuck to that my entire career because I really do believe that that is the best storytelling. It's in the small moments that lives change. And the big, giant headlines have got to be there to serve the small moments. It's just my personal philosophy. Doesn't mean it's right. It's just you know, that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, in the writer's room, Amy and I and the writers always worked really hard to hide the plot. There was always plot, but bad plot you're kind of aware of. It's like big things that happen, but those big things don't happen in a kind of a low stakes or a low concept show like this. But stuff was always happening, and we always tried to make it as smooth and seamless as possible. We put a lot of work in the writer's room, lots of like beautiful mind John Nash writing on a whiteboard, before we even started writing, just to make sure that you never really saw what was coming. So when something happened that was a little bigger, it lands really hard in this show. It lands really hard, and it's often very emotional. And it just lands, I think, harder than other shows' plots do.
Was there a moment that, watching back an episode that you had shot that really got you?
I remember when the wallowing thing at the end of that one episode, that was a great episode because it was Rory denying that she had any problem and Lorelai kind of needling her, and then finally at the very end, Rory saying, "I'm ready to wallow now." Really emotional impact because it went kind of slow and it built and it made everybody tear up, including me, and I have a heart of Luke, really. Because I'm halfway modeled on Luke and weirdly halfway modeled on Rory. So,
brother.
Yeah.
Also, Rory's birthday parties, which was one of our very early shows, and it was just about our birthday party and getting kind of screwed up, but nothing really like she didn't go to and a cake fell on her, or somebody put vodka in the punch, or like nothing like that happened. But it all led up to Emily and Lorelai talking, and Emily and thinking like, okay, maybe this was sort of a togetherness moment because the Gilmores came to the house, which they'd never done, and Lorelai said it's a really nice thing, and it felt sort of like sweet. And then Emily gets in the car and says, "I don't know her at all." And Ed was there.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's the kind of stuff that we did, and I think we actually did it very well because it was what feels like not a lot's happening is going to land in a moment, and it's going to carry you through for till next week.
Okay, this actually comes from the other continent. I got on Reddit and told people I was coming. So she sent me a question. She's doing her dissertation on Gilmore Girls, so I want to make sure I get it right. So I'm going to read it exactly the way she read it for me. Okay, how much thought and awareness is going into giving each character linguistic uniqueness and at the same time showing their strong relationship links with each other in terms of their dialogue? I know they weren't allowed to stray from the script at all. So how did Amy make sure that you had a strong idea about how they sounded and why? Where did that come from, and how do you write it?
That person went to college. That's unfair.
As far as I know, it is her doctoral dissertation.
Yeah, you lost me at linguistic.
Okay, basically, from what I could figure, she just wants to know, how did you make sure that every person sounded different but still maintained a relationship between each other?
I'm a writer, man. That's what I gotta do. I can't do open heart surgery. I got no other skills. If I didn't do that shit, who's gonna watch the show? I mean, it's I don't know. It's like you gotta hear them in your head. You gotta like hear who the person is and know, well, this person would say it that way, and if they sound too much alike, then you're like, well, that's not going to work. If anything can be given to somebody else, if any joke of Lorelai's I could have handed to Rory or to Emily, it's not a good joke, right? Because it's got to only work for Lorelai. So that's called, you got to be your own worst enemy and be hard on yourself.
Yeah, and the actors feedback in that too. I mean, in a TV show, you have the luxury of getting to know the actors from week to week, and we writers adjust from week to week for their voices, their strengths, all of that stuff. They bring a lot. They're in it with us equally.
And just real quick, I have to say, Lauren, I absolutely adore you. And Matt, I have to thank you because I did not watch this show until it came on Netflix because I watched you as Carrie Agos. Fell madly in love with you.
Thank you.
I watched everything. I'd worked my way through everybody else. Of course, I'd watched Dirty Dancing as a 4-year-old. Nobody puts baby in the corner. I think she gets it from me. And so I have to thank you because you introduced me to this amazing cast. And the past few months of my life have been amazing because if life sucks, you go and you sit down and you're like, I'm going to go watch Gilmore Girls. And my life is much better now. So thank you all for everything that you do. Thank you for coming to Texas and dying in all of our lovely Texas heat. I know, Alexis, you're probably relatively used to it. Jared, you're used to it by now. But thank you. So.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that there's not a weak link on the stage in the cast, and so we really appreciate all of you being here. Okay, I wrote it down. I'm horribly nervous. I'm sorry. I was wondering if Amy could answer whether the rift between Lorelai and Rory that culminated when Rory decided to leave Yale was always in the show's plan. I was also wondering whether Amy thought the rift would be partly caused by the men in Rory's life, Dean and Logan, at the ends of season 4 and 5 respectively. And I would also like to know if Lauren and Alexis could describe how they felt at the time about the impact of this storyline on their mother-daughter relationship.
I need beer. I need beer. Beer.
I remember not liking it. I remember really struggling with it and feeling bad. It just didn't feel, not that it was a poorly told or wrong story in any way, but it was personally, it was difficult.
Yeah.
As it should have been, you know, that's, as the actor and as the character, I think, like, you know, it was hard. But it set up something, you know, that was also important.
Yeah, I think I was always used to Lorelai and Emily being the ones in sort of arguments, and Rory and Lorelai always got along until that point, and she was only afraid that, you know, her history was going to be repeated through Rory, but I think I don't know, I think Rory inherits a lot of the drama that came from Emily and Lorelai's relationship, and she's literally just fielding emotional activity. She's kind of a character that's formed through, you know, the experience of living with these two women. Because there was so much, but there's so much anger and hurt and so much to say between them. And so she really was in the middle a lot. And I think that's what that storyline was for me.
It's, you know, I don't know that I knew it from day one, but, you know, at the beginning of a season, we always sort of talk about, like, what are our arcs, what are our themes, what are we going to go through? And, you know, the thing about their relationship, because it was so close and it was so tight and it was so girlfriendy, it was always those moments where Lorelai had to be a mom suddenly, which Lorelai fucking hated. You know, Lorelai wanted to be the friend, she didn't want to be the mom, but sometimes you got to be a mom. And Rory, who never really acted out, at some point had to act out. And she had to sort of push away to be able to grow and become her own person. So while I totally understand, like, the feeling of, like, oh my God, they're apart, and that's, you know, I felt like it was really important for the characters to have that moment of what is our lives if we're not close like this, because I've counted on that. I count on it every day when I wake up and when I go to bed, that the only thing in the world I know that's going to be there is my relationship with my daughter or my mom, and when that's not there, what does that mean?
No, it's very real. It just really stressed us out.
Sorry.
Any regrets with storylines?
No. I'm too old to regret. Really? Oh God, that's exhausting. No, I don't think so, because it gets you somewhere. And even if, like, it doesn't, like, a love interest doesn't work out exactly the way that we wanted to, or a thing, it's going to get you someplace new and more interesting.
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to say, Lauren.
You really are 8. Seriously. How old are you?
12.
You're adorable, and you're 12.
I really liked Lauren on Repeat After Me. I thought you were really funny.
Thank you. On Repeat After Me. Thank you.
And I want to say happy birthday to Patterson Doyle.
Thank you so much.
And
Yeah, it's Danny's birthday today, and Liza's was yesterday.
Patterson Doyle forever.
And I wanted to know what Lauren, Alexis, and Keiko's favorite episodes are.
Thank you so much for your kind question. I don't remember. I honestly don't. I don't remember. What do you remember? I don't. Do you have a favorite?
I'm just going to go with the pilot because
Yeah.
it informed the whole
It's hard when you're in it to have any perspective, and someday maybe I'll sit around and, like, watch and compare and think to myself, what do I think about this? But, like, until that day, the whole experience was incredible, and certain days and certain scenes were really fun and exciting to do, and then you kind of keep going. So it's hard to look back when you're still in it. And I guess in some way I'm still in it. I just keep trying to answer your question, but I don't remember.
Do you go back and have you gone back and watched it at all?
I have not watched myself on television since like 1995, and I'm not kidding. I don't really watch it, except occasionally when it like assaults me on TV, and I'm like, oh God. I just don't find it helpful, Someday.
I know you're really good, Lauren. You should really check yourself out.
Thank you so much.
And I'm actually split between the two because I think when you're doing it every episode and you're just in it in the moment, and I have to say it's the pilot. I mean, when I think back to us being in Toronto and like just discovering everything and meeting, each of the people that we got the chance to meet that very first time, there's nothing like that.
I do have to say, I have recently watched the pilot because as a piece of research for something I was working on, and what was incredible to me, especially given what the TV landscape is today, is for the first 25 minutes, nothing happens. All you do is meet these incredibly charming people, and we have an exchange at the inn, and you and I have an exchange, and nothing happens until Rory gets into Chilton. And you would never have that today. There would have to be explosions before the first commercial, and I was so drawn into it, having nothing to do with me, just with the charm of the town and the people, but I was really struck by how much things have changed.
Yeah, I mean, Amy, what would happen if you pitched this show today?
They would validate my parking, and I would leave.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Or they might not validate the parking, too. I don't. Yeah.
Hey, everyone. First of all, I just want to say, I was born and raised in Brazil, and one of the reasons I can speak a reasonable English is because of this show. So this is amazing. And my question, is, Gilmore Girls is really famous for the witty, quick dialogues, and I was just wondering, and this is for the whole cast, how was it like to say those lines? Like, what was challenging about it, about saying them, and for you guys to listen to them and follow it, not get too lost, because, sometimes for me it was kind of like, okay, I need subtitles for this. So I was wondering, what was it like for you guys to deal with that quick dialogue?
Okay. Actually, when I was first acting, I was a dancer first, and then I became an actress. And maybe it was living in New York, or maybe it was energy or whatever. I was always talking fast, and very often I would be told by a director to slow down. So when I got a hold of this stuff, and it was really important to talk fast, that was great. I think as far as memorization, I really had to cram sometimes. I really, really worked it. But again, I think someone said it earlier. Lauren said it. When the scene is right, when the words are right, they have an ebb and flow, and it is almost like a song. It's like music, and then it pops back and forth between characters, and it all makes sense. So I think what you start to do is you start listening to the music of it, because it is fast. And one of my favorite things about this show always was that it was so deeply funny, and it was like, did you get the joke? Didn't get it? Moving on. And so you really had to be intelligent to enjoy the show properly, and that thrilled me, because see, you're all like really, really smart. Isn't that awesome?
Smartest audience ever.
How many of you had pop culture references go over your head?
Oh, I did, all the time. The only things I knew about, and I know you even asked me once when we were shopping at a department store, it was early on, and was it Betty? Who was it? Amy, was it Betty Hutton? Betty? Barbara Hutton.
Yes, Barbara.
And Lauren, who has one of the most incredible minds I've ever met, along with Mrs. Sherman Palladino, Mr. Palladino. Lauren knows everything. I mean, she's really sharp. She's like bam, 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 and we're blocking the scene, and we're going through it, and we know what the camera's going to do, and we've done it about 4 times, not filmed yet. And Lauren, for the first time, said, "I don't know who Barbara Hutton is." And I went, "I do." No, she said it to me because I knew that reference, but some of the pop culture references I then had to ask them because I had no idea who these people were. So, yeah.
Alexis, is it true you had to ask Lauren who the Waltons were?
Yeah, I think she contributed the information to me because I probably was a little lost. I probably looked a bit lost.
You didn't know the Waltons, and you didn't know maybe Little House on the Prairie or James Taylor. Is that possible? Anyway,
I knew those two. I did not know the Waltons at all.
It made me feel old.
And weirdly, the house that we shot on the back lot as your house was a Walton set.
Oh, no way.
So that's another layer.
There you go.
Yeah. Hi, y'all. I was just wondering, other than the character that you all played, who is your favorite Stars Hollow personality?
Kirk.
I loved Rose Abdu, Gypsy. I thought it was so brilliant to make a woman the town mechanic. It was just flawless, and I thank you.
And we miss our Sean Gunn here. He's out of the country, but Kirk was one of our favorite comic mouthpieces, and he was
He's doing
great.
a movie, and he literally wrote me an email that said, "I would fly in, but my doctor told me my lungs would explode because of the altitude, and I'm worried that might happen, so I can't." And I'm like, he can't be lying about that. That's just too Sean. So he really wanted to be here, but he's in Bogota.
I thought Taylor was a pretty necessary character. There needed to be a bad guy.
I have this shirt. I think it was maybe a Christmas gift for the cast. It says "A film by Kirk." I almost wore it here today. And I think that black and white video of Sean Gunn doing it made me laugh harder than possibly anything I've ever seen. Just knowing Sean and then watching the film of him kind of doing crazy things, it makes me laugh thinking about it. I should have worn the shirt.
Did you all lift anything from the set before the show went off?
We didn't know it was ending. I would have stole so much.
We've got the original Stars Hollow sign in our house. The outdoor one.
I've got Jess's leather jacket.
The glasses that I actually wore were my glasses, and they still have them there. So it was actually negative for me.
John, they have my glasses too, and that was from like 7 seasons. I want my glasses back.
So last question.
Oh, dang. The pressure. Like, I don't already have my heart pounding, so. All right, first I want to thank you for 3 things. I'm a sophomore English teacher, and I show I shouldn't say this, but I quit, so. They can't fire me. I show your shows all the time just because of the dialogue. I mean, you have so much allusion, assonance, consonants, alliteration, puns. There's so much I use all the time. The second thing would be the Gilmore Girls reading challenge, which I don't know if any of you had tried that, but oh my gosh, it is so hard. And then what's even
Something
harder,
like 337 books. It's all the books that Rory read over the course of the series.
It's insane and expensive, but harder than that is probably the Gilmore Girls drinking game. It's on Pinterest. 20 minutes in, you're feeling good. But
what do you drink on?
Trivia?
Anytime you're sarcastic. So.
Anytime I'm sarcastic?
Anytime, like Emily says, "Where is that made?" But really, I do have a question, I promise. I wanted to ask the cast, was there ever, because you guys, you seem to associate with your characters quite well. Was there ever a time where you got your script and you were just like, fuck, and you just looked at it and you were like, kind of like, oh, does my character have to do this? Just like maybe you were disappointed in like a choice they made or something like that?
Anybody?
No.
Yeah, it happened a lot in
No,
season
nothing,
7.
nothing.
It happened a lot in season 7.
Oh my gosh. As my students
I'm
would
joking
say, you're
about that. That's a
throwing
total joke.
shade.
Yeah. Now, you know, one of the things I found, you make up, as you start a character, in order to give it life for yourself, even if nobody's going to know anything, you make up a backstory for yourself to justify your behavior and all that. And the amazing thing is, as the years went on, I would get a script and there would be a reference which was exposition in the, 3 years into it. And it was spot on exactly what I'd been thinking the whole time. And I go, I mean, it was just thrilling to think that we were so attuned to, I think you've had that experience too. I mean, it was exactly what was going on in my mind that I never mentioned to anyone, and out it comes into script.
I used
So
to
it's
feel
great.
like my life was being robbed because I would have like, a breakup, and then I'd have an episode about a breakup, and like, she couldn't have known necessarily in the amount of time. I think one of the things we all feel and felt about this show is the characters felt so real and so consistent and so unique. And so through that kind of gift and through that kind of lens, everything makes sense. Like I said, I didn't love, Rory and I being apart, but the way it was done is exactly how it would have been for Lorelai. So it was very gratifying.
For me, I would get that reaction, but it was because it was so difficult. I don't think as fast as everybody talks on the show. So it was always a big challenge. I mean, I don't even know how I got on the show. I think you all had to read and test, and I swear to God, I just wandered into the studio and, hey, what's going on here? Hey, put that guy over there. And then, honestly, it's mostly because it was so difficult, which, and I was always amazed by Lauren and Alexis that they were able to do that. I had the pleasure of directing a couple episodes, and unfortunately, the only note is, okay, faster and funnier. But it was always amazing to watch the amount of work that had to go into it, and to be able to spit it back so fast is incredible.
Well, Amy, I want to give you the last word on this. Just where the show, you've earned it.
I've been talking for 3 days.
Just where the show lives, kind of in your, in your heart right now, of all the things that you've done.
You get one, I think, sometimes in a career. You get one. You get that thing where you can go, okay, you know what? If everything else fails, if I wind up like a big dumb drunk in the gutter saying, I used to be a writer, at least I got this. Because when I used to say it all the time when I was at Gilmore, I literally said, it's all downhill from here. Like there's just no way I'm gonna top this experience, this cast, this leading ladies here. It's just not going to happen again. And that's okay, because that's what this business is. This business is some people get lucky and some people don't. And God, I got so lucky. So.
Just one more question. Hi.
Well, right now I'm very scared because 3 people I really don't know just told me to ask my question.
Okay.
But my question is, depending
We will not buy you beer.
Well, that's not what I was going to ask. Thank you very much. But my question is, depending on Laura and Scott's character and how they reacted with each other in their relationship, do you think they ever would have gotten married?
On my character and Luke?
Mm-hmm.
Is that who you're asking?
Yep.
I think they probably did.
I'm very pleased with that answer.
Thank you. I'm very pleased with your question. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you
all very much.